Hi, welcome to The Catholic Every Woman. I am Anna Sutton.
And I'm Jane Spencer.
And we today are going to be talking about performative Catholicism.
Yes. Anna, so when you think about performative Catholicism, what comes to mind?
So I find the trend online of performative Catholicism really interesting because I see people striving to encapsulate something to really make it a part of their daily life, which I can really resonate with because as a convert, I remember this feeling of like, okay, I'm converting to this religion. How do I make it feel real? How do I change my reality to operate around this new belief system I have? And so I think it's easy to kind of go over the top and like do all the things and try and celebrate every feast day because you want it to feel like your real culture. And the reality is, in America, we don't really have a strong culture.
True.
And so you almost have no idea what you're doing. You're kind of cosplaying it a little bit until it starts to feel real. I recently was spending time with a friend who's Armenian, and she was talking about her culture, and I was kind of jealous. I was like, man, my family is so boring. Like, they have all these foods and these dances, and like weddings are more interesting, and like everything about it was more interesting. And so I think for a lot of people, when I see them striving to do like all these Catholic things, what I see in it is striving to establish a real culture for themselves and to feel rooted in something. But the downside of it is it can just be like fake.
Yeah, it's a hard line to walk because when I think of performative Catholicism, immediately I think to what is external. If we're performing, if we're doing things, that's something that other people can see. And I think it's a really fine line to walk between, like you said, having a life rooted in culture and rooted in Catholic practice versus doing something for the purpose of it just being external and observable by others.
Yes. Yeah, okay, so the reality is Jesus in the Gospels is pretty clear about not being performative in our religion.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, he talks about praying to your Father in secret, go into your room, close the door.
Mm-hmm. In Matthew. And the Pharisees, he's really hard on. He's like, you pray on the street corner. What is it? It's you're clean on the outside, but on the inside you're still filthy.
Didn't he say like you're a sepulcher? You're a white sepulcher?
Not in the Protestant Bible, but yes. Probably in the Catholic Bible, the word is sepulcher.
Oh, okay. Yeah, translations.
I think we just say cup.
Yeah, the Pharisees would put ashes on their head and rent their clothing and, have solemn faces to indicate that they were doing penance. But, we're told wash your face. Don't let it show if you're doing penance or fasting or doing a lot of these other things that are part of our Catholic culture.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's pretty clear in Scripture, and I think everyone would agree, you should not be doing something purely for looks. Totally. So then the question is finding that line with yourself and also not being so judgmental toward others and assuming that their line is the same line as your line, if that makes sense.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, I think it takes some self-reflection. Why am I doing this external thing? Am I doing it so that others can see me? And maybe there is part of me that wants to be a good example. Uh-huh. And also, is there a part of this that is vanity? Or maybe we are wanting to ingratiate ourselves to a certain community.
Mm-hmm. What do you think of when you think of performative Catholicism?
Gosh, I think of growing up, I went to like a mission parish, so everyone had to drive an hour to get to church, and we didn't have a solid community. So performative Catholicism never entered my mind at that point. But then once I moved to a small town that was primarily Catholic, there seemed to be a lot of things that Catholics did or that Catholic women did that for me, immediately I could tell, oh, you're Catholic, or maybe this means you're a good Catholic versus a lax Catholic. So there's that judgment piece behind it. Just to answer your question, I think of performative Catholicism as things like veiling at Mass or certain modesty standards that are, I have like questions about, okay, what's the purpose here? What are we going for?
Like your skirt has to like cover your knees all the time. Like,
yeah, things like that where the modesty is a virtue and that's beautiful. And I think it really does start on the inside. But then how that gets expressed on the outside, I think it's very vulnerable to judgment and vulnerable to imbalance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. We joked about this when we went from 4 to 6 kids. We were like, oh, we're real Catholics now. Like going beyond 4. I feel like 4 is the line of like, oh, that's a nice little family. Which is funny because in the real world, people are like, oh my gosh, you have 4 kids. But if you get over 4, then you're like legitimized as like a real Catholic family.
Ooh, yes. That is so interesting. And I think, large families are kind of stereotypical for Catholics or more traditionally minded Catholics.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have children right now.
Mm-hmm.
I've been able to see people at Mass, and I do count little heads because it's kind of fun. How many kids does this family have? But I'd love to hear your perspective as a Catholic mother. Could you speak a little more to performative Catholicism with children?
Yeah. Whew. Oh gosh, I think this one really kind of like gets me because it can be like performatively wearing a veil. It's like, okay, performatively like having more children if you're not ready to have more children is like a huge life choice.
It is. And I think that makes me sad when I hear about that, because I think if a woman is having children in order to be a good Catholic or to look like a good Catholic, to me that says that there's something missing on the inside. Like, is she sad? Is she lonely? Why does she feel like having children like establishes her Catholic identity?
Yeah.
Oof.
Well, the church language that they use is you should be open to life unless you have a grave reason.
Absolutely.
Which I think is a very intentionally like gray area way of saying that, because they don't draw a hard line.
Correct.
So that's challenging because it's really open to interpretation. So depending on what crowd you're in or what parish you're attending or, who you're talking to at the time, grave reason can mean like, oh, it's only a grave reason if you will like literally die your next pregnancy. Or it can mean like you're overwhelmed or you don't feel like you can financially support another child right now.
Wow, yeah.
I've definitely heard people say finances should never, ever be a reason. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Our cats. Shane's allergic to cats.
That's okay.
And we have 3 of them, so.
I'm delighted.
Do you want me to put her down? Okay.
It's fine.
This is Zelda. It's so funny because Zelda almost never comes out. She's pretty reclusive, so for her to come out and hop on your lap, you should actually be honored.
It's a thing. Like, the one person who's allergic to animals in the room, I attract them all. Like, especially the tricky ones. They're like,
Oh, that's
that
funny.
cat doesn't like anybody except you.
I would say another performative thing that is maybe less heavy than just the number of children you have is home birth or non-epidural birth or like how you choose to give birth. That is a very, very heavy indicator of like how Catholic, at least in my experience, like coming in just sort of, so when I came into the church, I had 4. I was pregnant with my 4th. And I luckily was already like, I choose to go to the hospital and I get an epidural and I'm pretty, not apologetic about that.
Did anybody did you feel any judgment for that?
Oh yeah. I was surprised by how many people asked me like, well, are you going to do natural labor? And I'm like,
really?
No, natural labor is just hell. Which, because I think the thinking is, in a very conservative Catholic circles for some people, the thinking is if you choose to sit in that suffering and you choose to offer it up in prayer, that's a really noble thing, which it is. If you're genuine, I definitely have friends who very genuinely commit themselves to that. And in advance of labor, they text you and they ask like, how can I pray for you in labor? It's a really beautiful thing if your heart is really there.
Oh, can I share what I thought? So I thought women chose to have natural labors, no epidural or home birth, that sort of thing, out of more of a like distrust of the medical field or not wanting medical intervention because of how that might affect the fetus or newborn.
Well, yes, there's definitely that. There's a lot of distrust of the medical system.
Okay. I hadn't heard I'm going to suffer this Calvary for a prayerful reason.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that yet, so.
That is definitely, and I would say that could be a level of performative, or it can be truly your heart. And that's where I had to, like, when I heard this over and over, I sort of had to internally be like, okay, they're not lying to me. I know these people. They're my friends. Mm-hmm. If they are truly trying to offer this suffering up, which the suffering is intense. So, like, it's very noble and honorable if that's really what you're doing. But I do think that you could kind of text ahead and ask people for prayer requests and just totally be doing it as a performative thing. And that's a big judgment on someone. But that would be something where I would say I could definitely see that being performative.
Well, is there a prize at the end if you have a completely natural birth and that you like win?
Yeah, I think the biggest benefit I could say, I've never had a natural birth. I always get epidurals. But what I hear is that the recovery is a lot easier without an epidural.
Really?
Yeah, because you go it numbs you, so it's hard to walk. And if you have an epidural in for a long time, it takes a while to wear off. If you have a quick labor and it's only briefly in, it's not a big difference.
Okay.
So to me, that's the only compelling motivating factor at all. And then when I'm in the midst of it, I'm like, not compelling enough. Somebody get me an epidural.
Well, what about the prize of, like, do the women of the community roll out the red carpet? Like, yes, you've had a natural birth or you had a home birth, you win. And then you get the, like,
you get
a prize of
banner.
Respect sort of from the community. Like, is the community supporting those choices because it's reinforcing them with praise or something like that?
I think what I've seen online for sure is women who have a completely natural birth are very proud of it. Mm-hmm. Which, okay, so like I run half marathons. Mm-hmm. I do it because I do like to push myself. So there could be, I think people could say, I choose to, like, I have conquered this. I did it without medical intervention. And so there is pride in that. There's also certainly like a bragging rights type of thing that you earn. Kind of like when you see somebody with like the 26.2 sticker on their car, like they had to tell you they ran a marathon, because it is a feat of human strength. And so I think probably women feel that way about it. Like, this is something I worked really hard at. I suffered intensely. I did it. I like had this goal in my head and I did it. Again, I never felt that was a compelling enough reason.
What's harder, a half marathon or childbirth?
Oh, childbirth. For sure. Oh, it's horrible. It's truly horrible.
Thanks for saying that, because, I think sometimes, especially as, like, I'm not a mother right now, that people sometimes frame it as just this magical, glorious, beautiful experience. And, but we know that's a radical, procedure that the body goes through. So
yeah, it's natural, but it's like entering into the jaws of death and being snatched back out again. And might we add, before modern medicine, many, what was it? 30% of women died in childbirth.
30%.
So it's
wow.
huge. It's astoundingly challenging, like, what your body is doing.
Yeah, and so, for our Catholic and non-Catholic listeners, has the church ever said anything about how a woman should have a baby?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. But it's interesting how Catholics sort of group together around this belief that it's better to have a child this way than this way, when that's not actually a requirement or teaching of the church.
Well, okay, so this is probably a whole episode in and of itself, but I think probably it feels more Christian to trust science less. And so the more unscientifically you can do something, the more authentically Christian it could seem.
Does that mean that we trust God more if we trust science less?
Exactly. I think that would be the thinking. I would totally disagree with that because I think science is a gift from God.
Yeah. I mean, science agrees with the Catholic teaching, the Catholic Church, I don't see a contradiction, but it's interesting how on the lay side of things, they seem mutually exclusive. Mm-hmm. If you trust God, you don't need the intervention of modern medicine or therapy because maybe that means we're throwing off the cross.
Exactly. Like, how dare you take the easy road out?
Gosh. Yeah. Okay, so maybe that's the underlying principle that harder is better.
Yes, harder is better. No intervention is a heavier trust in God. You're believing that God created your body to do something naturally, and therefore it should only be done that way. And discrediting the number of deaths and, the reality that before modern medicine, many, many women died in childbirth. And so one seems like, I trust the body that God created and gave to me. Whereas I would say, I'm still pushing the baby out. Or if you have a C-section, you're still growing a baby and then recovering from that, which is incredible. And, breastfeeding in and of itself is like an astounding thing the human body can do. But you can look at medical interventions and be like, wow, God is so good to give us these.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I can think off the top of my head, definitely 2 of my children would have died without modern medicine. I'm so thankful that I don't have to go through that suffering.
I would have died and my mother would have with me.
Oh, wow.
When you said thinking of the body as the body was designed to do this, therefore medical intervention is a problem. I can think of so many arguments against that.
Yeah.
For example, if someone is diabetic, the body is meant to process glucose, glycogen, with the help of the pancreas. But if someone has diabetes, they need the help of whatever it is, insulin or an insulin pump.
Yeah.
And I think everyone would agree that it's ridiculous if someone has diabetes, especially type 1, not to monitor that very closely and to use every medical intervention we can to prevent things like blindness.
Yeah. Totally. Or, cells are meant to divide, but in cancer, they divide too much. They go crazy. Yes. We should stop that. You're not just saying, this cell is doing exactly what it was intended to do.
Right. Bodies aren't perfect. People aren't perfect.
Yes. Until they are until heaven.
Exactly.
Okay. So I don't want to hit the childbirth thing too hard because I want to stay focused on performative Catholicism. That is one aspect of my life that I did felt it for me. Had I chosen to then I'm going to do a natural delivery, for my 4th child, I definitely would have been doing it for the sake of performative, Catholicism, because I converted and I kind of felt this pressure and a lot of people asked me about it. And I was like, had I changed in that way, I would have been doing it for the approval of people for sure.
So do you think performative Catholicism touches your life in the most salient way with regards to your motherhood and your choice in how you have children or the number of children you have?
I think that is I think it's more how you structure the home. The areas I would feel most inclined toward performative Catholicism are how do I celebrate holidays? How do I, I am a lover of Christmas and I put my tree up early. I do not honor Advent. I'm screw it. It's November 7th. The tree's going up. And we have a fake Christmas tree because it lasts the whole season and I love it. My husband very much prefers real Christmas trees, but mostly the problem is that we have multiple kids with allergies and they can't breathe. So
yeah, okay, Advent versus Christmas. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Or then doing the full 12 days of Christmas, or so those things of acknowledging every child's saint day, that kind of thing. I'm this is beautiful. I would like to do this. However, if I did a whole thing for it, or if I did it for social media, can really quickly enter into performative Catholicism.
Yes. Interesting. Because I have seen those Catholic moms or Christian moms that will show their Advent wreath or show their little, shrine to a child's patron saint. And it's oh, that's cute and wonderful, and this is being posted on social media.
Yeah.
And I don't want to judge anyone's intention. But I wonder, kind of what's behind that.
Yeah. I mean, I think with children, you are striving to establish a culture for them. You want it to be so much a part of their life that it's kind of what they breathe. It's the cycle of their year. It forms everything about the way they think and live, which is why it's easy to feel like you just want to add and add and add.
Mm-hmm.
But you also, like my daughter Noelle. Noelle is not named after a saint. Well, we had her before we were Catholic. I know. I'm sorry. Take my Catholic card. But she chose St. Lucia. We were like, okay, well, pick a day early and pick a day to do something special. And obviously she's like the candle crown. I'm like for sure choosing that saint,
Yeah.
You eat like sweets and you carry, it's very beautiful. Okay, so for the sake of social media, you can do some incredible St. Lucia photos. Like it's the best saint for photos. But the reality is, if you want to actually make it practical for a child, you end up having like a dumb plastic crown. There's not real fire. So that's where it'd be a line of like, okay, we're going to celebrate the saint day with my daughter. Okay, but I'm going to really do it in a non-kid friendly way because it's way more beautiful and looks better and I can show my friends cool pictures.
Aha.
Which, again, I don't think it's all wrong to have, to choose beauty. I choose beauty in my home all the time in practical ways. But it just comes down to your heart in it. Like, if you can be honest with yourself and be like, I am 1,000% doing this. I'm going to put this beautiful lit crown on her head, and I'm going to snap pictures, and then I'm taking it off and putting the plastic one on. And you can kind of admit that to yourself, that you're just doing it for the aesthetic. I don't think it's bad. It's when you're acting like this is how we really do things all the time, and you're kind of lying to yourself and to others.
Yeah. That, and I think someone could genuinely examine themselves on that.
Yeah. Like veiling. Okay, we want to talk about veiling. You veil, I don't veil.
Yes.
And okay, tell me about your love of veiling.
Okay. So ever since I was little, I had those circle lace veils. That was like a lace pancake that went flat on top of the head with a bobby pin. And, I watched the adult women have like a triangle-shaped veil. And it was common practice where I went to Mass. The church I go to now, it's kind of 50-50. Like, some women do wear veils, others wear hats or scarves, and then some women don't wear veils at all.
I mean, we go to the same church, so...
Correct. So I think, and I don't feel judgment, or I don't feel a spirit of judgment or looking around or like a you shouldn't.
Yeah.
There have been times when I've gone to Mass and I forgot my veil, but I don't feel self-conscious about it.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I'm being judged, which is great.
Talk about the reason for veiling.
Yeah. So when I was in the monastery, because I discerned the religious vocation for 2 years, I was a postulant. So I had this black napkin tied under my chin, and I wore all black, and I was preparing to receive the beautiful white habit and white veil.
Okay.
And so,
you were Dominican?
Yes.
In France, right?
In France. I was cloistered. So our mistress of novices gave a class on the veil. We were about to receive this white veil, and I appreciated it so much because up until maybe then, or at least high school, I just veiled because that was common practice. It was culturally normal. And I remember learning as a young child, like, oh, a woman veils at Mass to cover her hair because that's the most beautiful part of a woman, and she should cover that.
And men everywhere are like, no, it's not.
Yeah, so I didn't question that. I was like, oh, covering my hair, okay, and men take off hats. Okay. But when
because it's the ugliest part of a man, so we should reveal it.
Yeah, exactly. So in the monastery, our mother went through the history of veiling, to ancient times, to the ancient practice of the Israelites.
Oh, cool.
So she said, typically, historically, we veil things that are holy. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, the Ark of the Covenant was veiled. The Holy of Holies was veiled with another veil in front of the holies in the Temple of Solomon.
Mm-hmm. Mary is always shown as veiled.
Always shown as veiled. And Mother didn't say this, but I have also read that the female body is also veiled. Our reproductive parts are veiled because that is something that's sacred. Mm-hmm. And now the tabernacle is veiled. And we have, different colors of tabernacle veils for the liturgical seasons, which is wonderful. But there's something about a woman that is holy or sacred in the sense that, we do have a soul, we have an interior life. Our Lady always wore a veil, and our interior life is representative of intimacy with God. Mm-hmm. And so when I wear a veil at Mass, I mean, I don't always think of this really clearly, but I think to myself, like, a veil reminds me that I'm about to receive Jesus in Holy Communion, and he is holy. Mm-hmm. And so because he is holy, I am like a temporary tabernacle for the Eucharist. And wearing a veil it's just a reminder for me, almost like a reminder of the reverence of the presence of God. Mm-hmm. So that's why I wear a veil. Yeah. And, as far as like performative Catholicism goes, I'm naturally more introverted, and so having a veil here is kind of nice. I feel like maybe I'm a little less visible, and I don't feel like I maybe am tempted to look around as much because I do have those little barriers.
Yeah.
I mean, I wear
like blinders on a horse.
A little bit, yeah. Like I don't wear like an opaque black veil. Yeah. I wear a lace veil typically, or a hat if I'm feeling fancy. But yeah, that's the reason I wear a veil. And I have considered before this conversation, is wearing a veil performative? But I really think it goes back to that conversation I had with my mistress of novices.
Yeah, which is, I think veiling is a perfect example of something that can be totally genuine. It is the history of veiling is very beautiful. When I first converted, heard the history, I saw, these women at our church, many veiled. Yeah. And I was like, what is this? And so I learned the history and I was like, that's so beautiful. And then I immediately went to pictures of Jackie Kennedy veiling, and I was like, oh yeah, I can make this look good, which is like instantly the wrong reason to veil. And the other thing I found is because of having small children, it was such a source of distraction.
Oh, yeah.
I was always adjusting it. They want to play peekaboo with it. It's really annoying to try and wear a veil with small kids, unless you train them. And the other thing was I heard mom say, like, I veil to remind my children that we're in the presence of God, which, again, I think is very beautiful. I pretty rapidly realized, like, this is doing nothing beneficial for my spiritual life. In fact, it's definitely detracting from my spiritual life because it was kind of a source of vanity. It was kind of a source of distraction. It was just like, ugh. So I stopped.
Okay. Yeah. So you had that conversation with yourself.
Yeah. Like, this is becoming performative purely.
Okay. Yeah.
And I would love, love, love if like hats came back in force and we could wear hats all the time.
Let's bring it back.
But again, I know, and I would admit that is very much would be a fashion choice. And I would wear them at Mass because I think when I see like pictures of all the women going to church with hats. Actually, I was looking at summer fashion and I was like, hats is just a great accessory. Men could wear hats, women could wear hats. So I would love to see that happen, but I can't honestly say I would do it for the spiritual reasons, even though I think they're beautiful and valid. It just wouldn't be where my heart was, really. It would be because I like hats,
Okay, so here's a question back to how you said, look, I choose beauty in my household all the time. I'm wondering if choosing that sort of beauty in church is a good thing in and of itself.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things in the churches that are beautiful. I think choosing beauty is always honoring to God because God is beautiful.
Maybe I'm trying to convince you to wear a hat, if you like that.
I mean, I could go find some hats, find some hat resources. If anyone has good hat websites, send them my way. We have a mutual friend who has the most amazing sense of style, and she can make me shop. Like, she'll send me all these websites, and my husband's like, oh no, not more texts from Megan. I'm like, oh, look at these dresses. She always looks elegant.
Indeed.
She's definitely talked me into it. I'm sure. So that to say, I'm sure if I asked her, she'd be like, oh, I have hat websites.
Yeah. Yeah. That could be really fun.
But yeah, I think choosing beauty, I don't know, it's a difficult line of like, if something, to define something as performative in a negative sense, I think is you're doing it performatively. If you're trying to convince others, you're doing it for the sake of holiness. It all comes down to, are you like the disposition of the heart? If you're just doing something because you just genuinely like it, or you think it's great, or you find spiritual benefit in it, I wouldn't call that performative. If you're doing something and deep down your intention is to look more holy, or look in a way that your heart is not actually reflective of, that is where it becomes performative. Okay. In my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's a really good method of discerning where is my heart on these things. I was trying to think about the Catholic teaching on veiling or not veiling. And in recent times, I don't think there has been anything written or promulgated by Rome regarding like even an urge for women to veil. But when I think about historically and culturally in the Middle Ages in Europe, monks, they had a hood typically, but that was removable, and women, religious and non-religious in the Middle Ages, covered their heads and their hair. But I don't know if there was a Catholic, like a specifically Catholic teaching of the time regarding women covering their hair, because it was also so tightly tied to the culture.
Yeah, so, okay, with like culture changing, so I'm wondering if there was a point where a woman showing her hair was considered more sexual. Or I remember going down to South America as a teenager, and I didn't know that like looking men directly in the eyes in that culture was like very flirtatious and sexual. And that was something I learned. And so I do think if something is culturally, like I imagine probably little girls wore their hair down, and then at some point you would come of age and you would wear your hair back, and you would wear hats or veils or...
Right, like in the book Kristen Lavransdatter.
Yes.
Once a woman was married, she then received the wimple of the married woman.
Yeah.
And I know in the Jewish religion, women cover their hair as a sign of marriage.
Oh, yeah. So you're not like a virginal
maybe
anymore?
Maybe, or that your hair or that beautiful part of you that was normally visible to everyone is now something that's just like for your husband.
Yeah.
But neither of those things dealt with being in the presence of God, like as Catholics understand it.
But if culture is now shifted, obviously now a woman showing her hair is not. Maybe it would be such a source of distraction in Mass that the church would be more prone to pushing women to cover, or I'm sure at some point, all women veiled at Mass or wore hats. When did that change? Do you know?
Well, culturally, men and women wore hats in the 1940s.
Yeah. Probably by the 60s they stopped.
Probably.
70s?
I mean, both of my parents were born in the 50s, and they remember people wearing hats.
Yeah.
But perhaps it was with the social, cultural, sexual revolution of the 60s that radically changed.
All right, what are other areas of performative Catholicism?
Well, I was talking to Connor about this the other week, and we were talking about genuflections.
Oh, yeah.
And over genuflecting at Mass. So, he asked me, like, well, my understanding, or like, I've seen you genuflect at the pew, but my understanding was as soon as you enter the church, you genuflect. and then you just go into your pew without genuflecting.
Oh, interesting.
Or, so we talked about that because we were kind of wondering, like, when do we genuflect? Obviously, the reason is to show deference to the Blessed Sacrament.
Yeah.
And I've observed in our church and other places that people will genuflect kind of everywhere. Like as soon as they enter the church, at the pew, I don't know, just lots of genuflecting. Or when the Blessed Sacrament is exposed, I've seen a wide variety of double genuflections, which is like, that's typical that you go on both knees and bow to the Blessed Sacrament.
Oh, okay.
But I've seen people like put their head on the floor and linger there.
Really? I've never noticed this.
Yes. I've seen people double genuflect when only a single genuflection is required, like during Mass, if the Blessed Sacrament is still on the altar.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think there's not a super clear standard there, and I think it's distracting when people
like prostrate themselves.
Yeah, like they behave outside of the regularity of the culture of their church.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, and again, you really have no way of knowing if they genuinely are are moved by the presence of the sacrament, or if they're. In the Protestant world, the equivalent of this is like you go to some churches and like during worship, people will like dance. Like in mega churches, they'll like dance. I remember this church we went to, people would have like streamers dance up and down the aisles during worship and stuff. It was really intense. Was
that like a movement of the heart?
Yeah, like you're moved by the Spirit, so you collapse, or like really really Holy Spirit driven churches could be pretty wild during worship.
Okay, can you help me understand which denominations of Protestantism like this?
Well, I was just non-denominational, but there was some Pentecostal would be really very moved by the Spirit. They're totally focused on the Holy Spirit.
So we would call that charismatic? Like they're a very charismatic church?
And I would say, like, there's kind of a gradient. So, like, the church I went to where I mostly remember, it was a mega church. And so, like, worship was like, there was smoke and lights, and it was really intense. It was like a huge church. Very much like a concert. And so, yeah, people would dance and people would... raising your hands, that's pretty common. Although I've never seen that in a Catholic church. Nobody's ever raised their hands during singing.
I've seen people raise their hands for the Our Father.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And in another church that I've attended, everyone would raise their hands above their head at the end of Mass when the priest would specifically pray.
Oh, okay.
For the people who had, like, birthdays that month.
Oh, interesting.
Connor and I did not raise our hands. I wore a veil.
So, okay, but back to the genuflecting thing, because I'm actually pretty fuzzy on this. So when I came into the church, our church is the only Catholic church I've attended consistently, because we've been Catholic now coming up on 5 years. Pentecost will be our 5 year.
Oh.
So my understanding was you just genuflect out of respect to the sacrament.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're going to like come in or go out, like similarly to royalty, you just genuflect before you like enter or exit the room. Now, where this gets tricky for me is now I often leave in the middle of the service with the babies, and I have two. My babies are both 25 pounds, so I have a baby on both hips, and I'm like, ooh, can I genuflect? When I do lunges, I'm like, okay, I need to do more lunges so that I can physically genuflect without falling over in Mass. And I've started to wonder, am I like going way over the top with this? Like, am I just genuflecting out of like, for no reason? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, when you have babies, it seems like not necessary and maybe even unsafe.
I have definitely, especially when you're in heels, you're like, oof, I might fall.
Yeah. And I want to come back to your comment about royalty, right? Because this came up in my conversation with my husband. He said, when genuflecting was really a common part of church culture, again, maybe Middle Ages, that was a way to show deference to royalty, right? With a genuflection. But now, culturally speaking, we don't take a knee to royalty. We might curtsy or bow, but bowing is much more culturally, I don't know, way that people...
We don't have royalty, so...
We don't, but in a lot of other cultures, like Asian cultures, they do a lot of bowing. And he was kind of wondering if bowing shows more respect now than genuflecting just because of culture and the times. Like, what does a genuflection mean for us today? Because we don't have that kind of movement to anybody anywhere else in culture. Whereas with bowing, we kind of do.
Yeah. Well, you could say similarly kneeling to take the sacrament. Like a lot of that could be something that in many churches is seen as performative, or it could be seen as like a genuine sign of like receiving the holiness of God. Like,
yeah, gosh, that's a really good point for performative. I think it's similar to the concept of modesty, which a big part of that is regularity and where are you at that moment.
Yeah.
So, I have gone to churches where people have just stood to receive Holy Communion, and I've often, knelt. But I've wondered, is that performative of me? Am I drawing attention to myself? Am I doing this out of some kind of pride, like, well, I respect the Blessed Sacrament more than everybody else, and so I'm kneeling?
Yeah, well, I was thinking, linking it to what your conversation with Connor, could you just bow and then receive and have it be a similar like position of the heart that's maybe less like invasive to the culture of that church?
Yeah, of that church, right. Whereas the church that we attend, everyone kneels for Holy Communion and receives Holy Communion on the tongue. Almost everybody. Yeah,
even some people they're really elderly, and I'm like, should we make them kneel? Can they get back up?
Yeah, it can be tricky. But similar to your comment with, doing lunges with 25-pound twins, to me it would seem absolutely normal and acceptable if someone is elderly or has an injury, not to kneel, but rather to stand at the communion rail because that's what's safe.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen someone take communion standing at our church.
Oh, okay.
The thing that I wonder about with communion is when I've visited churches and everyone takes it in the hand. I've only, at our church, I've only ever learned to take it on the tongue. And so I just opened my mouth. And often it's these servers who aren't the priests, and they're always like, ugh. And I've wondered, is it more disrespectful for me to make them, they're obviously so uncomfortable. But I just can't bring myself to touch Eucharist.
Right. I mean, to me, respecting the Blessed Sacrament is top priority. So even if I'm making a little old Eucharistic minister uncomfortable, I'm not really worried about that.
So that's our heart position. What is the actual teaching of the church on that?
Okay. Well,
what is the minimum guideline?
I mean, gosh, the minimum guideline is the utmost respect for the Blessed Sacrament.
Okay.
And I mean, my understanding is that the church ministers, all the way up to Rome, have distributed Holy Communion both ways.
Okay.
That receiving on the tongue and receiving in the hand, and there's a proper way to do it. I've never received Holy Communion in the hand, and I don't think I ever will. But apparently there is a proper way to do that is respectful.
Isn't it like making a
It looks like
throne?
It looks like one hand on top of the other. But gosh, I mean, a big concern is are there particles that drop to the ground, or do people then wipe their hands on their pants?
Yeah, because the priest, after they serve, washes their fingers in holy water, right? So nothing is ever...
not holy water, it's regular water. Okay. But then that water is disposed of, Properly, right.
Yeah.
It allows any particles of the consecrated host to dissolve, so that the presence of our Lord Jesus Christ is no longer there, because if the bread disappears, the matter is no longer there. So then that water and any particles that might be there are disposed of in a sink that goes directly into the ground.
Yeah.
It doesn't go with the rest of the plumbing.
So if somebody does not feel comfortable receiving communion on the tongue, they feel like it's a detraction, to our earlier point. It is performative for them. It's a detraction from their heart, or like they're only doing it for show. Then they just need to look up and make sure that how they choose to receive it is still within church boundaries and of the utmost respect to the Holy Eucharist. But you can receive in your hands. It's not against church teaching.
No, it's not against church teaching, as far as I can tell. Now, I think that practice started to arise after the Council of Vatican II.
Okay.
I've heard both things. I've heard, receiving communion in the hand was never a part of the Vatican II documents. And I wonder how it came about. So I'd be interested to look into that a little bit more.
Yeah. Maybe we should do an episode on that.
Ooh, yeah.
The proper way to receive communion, or at least a quick video on it. Yeah, because that's something that I don't know. The last time I was at a church that tried to give on the tongue, I opened my mouth. The person was so uncomfortable, they dropped it. And it fell on my sleeve, and I was like, ugh. And he was just like, good catch. Like, it was so casual. And I had to pick it up and put it in my own mouth. And I was just like so uncomfortable. And I was like, I do not know how I was supposed to handle that.
So I think this is why there's a strong argument to receive communion on the tongue, because accidents can happen. And receiving communion in the hand, we talked about particles, like maybe particles falling to the floor, or people wiping their hands, but also, gosh, if the host falls on the floor, that's terrible. So it's things like that.
And this is a doctrine and a teaching that has progressed in church history, because obviously in Acts, people would bring their own bread to Eucharist or to communion. Like in the early church, people would bring bread that would be like blessed in the service, and they would just partake of the bread they brought, which is why Paul talks about when he writes to the churches about, like, some of you are feasting and some of you are starving, and this isn't appropriate. So, like, the practice of how the Holy Eucharist should be treated has definitely developed over time.
Oh, for sure. Because now there are strict, like, it has to be unleavened bread. And most commonly in the Western Church, it's like a very thin, often round wafer of bread. But in the Eastern Church, it's often a piece of bread dipped in wine and then given on a golden spoon. So, like, received under both species. So growing up in Protestant, communion is only remembrance. It's only symbolic. And so we would just, like most churches I went to, just like crumbled saltine crackers, and you had like a piece of saltine cracker that you pass like a tray. And then you take like a tiny cup of grape juice, and that's it. And then whatever's left, you just throw away, because it's grape juice.
Oh yeah, never wine.
What?
Protestants are very anti-alcohol for the most part.
But Jesus Christ himself used wine at the Last Supper. I mean, isn't that an incredibly clear indication that even symbolic communion should use wine? Grape juice.
This is so interesting to me. This is shocking to you. Yeah, I mean, I did not know that anyone used wine until I was maybe in like middle school or something. And then I was at it was like a Mennonite church or something, really conservative, and they had wine, and it was so shocking.
Well, I mean, I'm wondering, like, what is the fear? Is the fear that people will abuse alcohol?
Well, yeah, I mean, think about the history of Protestantism. Like Baptists, Southern Baptists totally cut out alcohol. I mean, alcohol is not a part of the Protestant culture. Like, in the Catholic world, you go to, like, people's houses, you go to, like, Bible studies and dinners and stuff, there's always alcohol.
Always.
That does not happen at all in Protestantism. I mean, I'm sure somewhere, I shouldn't say at all, but growing up, that was never
But even like a NyQuil cup of wine. No, really.
Yeah.
And
always grape juice.
what is the judgment behind that for Protestants, like specifically with regards to symbolic communion?
I mean, I don't think Protestants give any thought to it. I think it's just a tradition.
Is it alcohol is bad in principle and that's why we use grape juice?
Yeah, and I'm sure it's cheaper and easier to access. And I mean, you'll get people all up in arms if you have real wine. It's just not culturally done. Alcohol is just not a thing.
Wow.
But I think usually at a Protestant church, you maybe take Eucharist once. Well, it's not Eucharist; it's communion once a month. Sometimes even just like a few times a year, and it's kind of it's just kind of an afterthought. It's like this is just a time where we think about Jesus' sacrifice on the cross, and then they pass around the crackers and the grape juice, and you all take it and you sit there quietly and think about Jesus' death on the cross, and then like that's it. And then they throw away the leftovers because it's nothing, which it is nothing. So sure, throw away the rest. I heard a story of somebody who was a Catholic and he was at a Protestant church and he took communion and they mentioned it and he's like, I can eat crackers and drink juice with whoever I want, which is like offensive, but also like, yeah, it's nothing. There's nothing about it.
How profoundly lonely.
Yeah, well, and a lot of churches even will just set it out up front and you can choose if you want to or not.
You know, because we have the true presence of Christ in the Eucharist.
Yeah.
You know, like the Blessed Trinity dwelling within our soul in the real presence. And I can't imagine, for example, apostatizing to Protestantism knowing that I would never have that. I think that would be so sad. Huge void.
It is a huge void. It's very, very empty. But they don't think anyone has it because it's not, they wouldn't say the Catholic way is real. Even
though Christ said, this is my body, this is my blood.
Yes, well, as a Protestant, you only take the Bible literally until it's inconvenient. Like 7 days, literal. Eucharist,
this is my body. Wow. That's
symbolic.
I think that's a really important distinction.
I know.
It's taken literally until it's the body and blood of Christ. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, sola scriptura. At least, I mean, I should emphasize. This is the Protestantism I grew up in. There are so many variations. There's certainly higher. Well, for example, okay, so what I was thinking of. Then we became Anglican, and so our very first Anglican church, this woman would bake bread for Eucharist every week, and it was delicious. And it was beautiful. She would mark it, and so they would actually break like loaves of bread. And
was it unleavened? Out of curiosity?
No.
Oh, okay.
It was very beautiful. And I thought, like, oh, this is so neat because it felt like for the first time in my life, communion was a big deal.
Okay.
The Anglican Church doesn't teach transubstantiation, but it's like, God's presence is there in some way.
Like in the way that he's omnipresent.
Yeah, or like, I think the Presbyterian Church is similar. It's around, it's over, it's specifically in the elements, it is present in some way, but it does not become the body and blood, soul, and divinity of Christ. So his presence is there, but it's not literally the elements. Mm-hmm. But they were more respectful. And so then we went to an even higher Anglican church on our slow journey toward Catholicism. And he was very strict. And I actually, at this church, offered to bake the bread because I liked it so much. And he was like, oh, no, what if like a crumb was dropped or something? And that was the first time I ever heard that. And so that actually kind of got me thinking. That was the church we ended up converting out of. He was so high Anglican. That was when I started to feel like I was just pretending to be Catholic. It was kind of like, why am I Anglican if everything we do is so Catholic? Presence. Yeah. And so then when I really looked into Eucharist, because it was like, well, if you believe so strongly in Eucharist, you're teaching us that like even a crumb dropped is really important. Mm-hmm. Why would we not just believe in transubstantiation,
Wow. So that belief for you was just logical. That was the logical path to your conversion, like next step. Wow.
Well, it was just the first time it came to mind. So it kind of made me realize either he's being weird and crazy about this, or he's right and I should be Catholic or Orthodox because they have the real presence. So that's when I started, I dived into doing a lot of reading on the Eucharist. And really, I mean, I just think if you're really honest with yourself, if you're like intellectually honest and you believe in Scripture, it's really hard to to get around John 6. It's just very difficult to do.
Can you remind me, a Catholic, what John 6 is?
As a person who doesn't read scripture. No, that's when Jesus says, like, he's preaching and he says, if you don't eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no life in me. And people are like, that's crazy. And then he doubles down on it. And then they respond. And then he doubles, like he reinforces it multiple times.
And people were scandalized and they left him.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I get, like, that initial visceral reaction, like,
it's kind of gross, yeah.
Are we talking about cannibalism here?
Well, and that's what the Protestant church, a lot of Protestants would say.
Okay.
That Catholics believe in cannibalism. I've
Wow.
heard this.
Okay.
Yeah, and then his disciples say, how can anyone believe this? And his reaction is not like, guys, I'm not being literal. It's like, are you going to leave too?
Are you going to leave too? Yeah.
So it's really hard if you genuinely read that passage and you genuinely look at what happened at the Passover and all that the Passover symbolized from Jewish history to just be like, well, no, it's only symbolic.
Yeah. So I'm curious if you think or if you know of Protestants who have heard that piece of scripture, unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you will not have life in you, I think. Mm-hmm. Did they know about that and they're still Protestant?
Yeah, it's amazing to me how many things, I think this all the time. So actually, when I first converted to Catholicism, I would get angry every time I read the Bible because I read these scriptures my whole life. I knew the Bible really well. My parents read the Bible to me every single morning. And there's so much that you just sort of brush over. And I would get mad. I mean, it took me years, really until more recently, to be able to read the Bible without becoming like almost viscerally angry about all the things that you just ignore or overlook or don't talk about. Like that awkward passage when Jesus gives Peter the keys of the kingdom and we're all like, Actually, what he's saying, here's the interpretation, because he says, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church. And what I was taught growing up was the rock that he's referencing is not Peter. It's the statement that was made by Peter previously. And it's like, well, it seems like a really like awkward way to say that. Like, why would you say, you are Peter, rock, Peter, changing his name, on this rock I will build my church. But what he actually means is like some statement Peter made. I mean, it's just like you really have to do gymnastics to get there. And there's so much stuff like that. And I'm afraid, I'm getting worked up because I'm afraid I'll offend Protestants, but I just think there's a lack of intellectual honesty. And obviously there are tons of very devout Protestants who read scripture and are very passionate about it, which makes me think then of when Jesus says, like, they have ears but they won't hear and eyes but they won't see.
Yes.
I just think somehow you're just not, and that's true for me too, because I would have fought against all these things when I was young, and somehow, like, it was the Holy Spirit that just, one day I just saw, it just changed. It was a grace. So I really shouldn't be angry or arrogant because I'm not better or different. I'm just so grateful.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you had quite the journey going through a bunch of anger, but I'm curious what advice you might have for, like, Protestant women who are curious about some of the things they're reading in scripture, or maybe some of their emotional reactions that come up.
Yeah, actually my best advice, what has really helped me, is buying the Ignatius Press Study Bible. It's the very first Catholic study Bible. And it's huge. It was done by Scott Hahn and John Bergsma, and it's massive.
Fantastic. Okay.
And it has tons of footnotes, tons of references. It's really, really helpful.
Yeah.
If you have one interpretation in your head and you're curious how the Catholic interpretation is, and the Catholic Catechism is also really good for this. Like, if you can look up something in the Catechism or look up something in the Study Bible and see, like, okay, this is why Catholics say this.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a catechism recommendation?
I didn't even know there were multiple catechisms.
Well, I grew up studying the Baltimore Catechism.
Okay.
Which it's pretty old school. A lot of questions to be memorized.
Okay.
In high school, I used My Catholic Faith. I think that might be a TAN publication. I'll have to check. And then later, I read the whole Catechism of the Council of Trent.
Oh, wow.
It was written for priests, but I really think it's pretty simple and it's thorough.
I'm just
think,
thinking of, I've only seen this like one book that just says Catechism of the Catholic Church. It's relatively new historically.
okay.
I'll have to look up details on this because
Okay,
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Okay, yeah, the catechism. It's an old one, right?
Okay.
At the time of the Council of Trent. So, I would say it's thorough, it's robust, it's lasted through the centuries.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's yeah, we'll have to. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll make we'll either add links or make a future video, a quick like short video saying like this is the
Linked
Ignatius Press
below.
Study Bible. This is the Catechism.
Yeah,
So,
great.
Yeah, but that is what has helped me the most, actually, is having just people more knowledgeable than I who say, this is how the Catholic Church interprets this scripture, as opposed to the interpretation I grew up with. Because once you learn something your whole life, it's really hard to think around it or get it or
Absolutely.
retrain your brain to look at it differently.
Yeah, and I think we have to pray for the grace to have ears to hear and eyes to see.
That's true. That's a good point. Pray. Just ask God. I just want to know the truth. Like, that was a prayer of mine almost as long. I'm very passionate. I'm very black and white. I'm very passionate about truth. And I prayed, God, I want to know the truth. I mean, definitely since middle school.
Wow.
So now I see clearly that he's been gracious. Although somebody pointed out to me recently, and it kind of blew my mind. I don't know why I've never thought of this. He's like, the truth is Jesus. Jesus is the embodied truth. He is flesh and blood. The truth is not this ephemeral, ethereal
I am the way
thing.
and the truth.
He
and the
is
life.
the truth. So you cling to Christ, which again, you think, well, the Eucharist, that is how we get Christ. That is, wow, how we literally take him in. But, well, we went pretty dramatically from performative Catholicism to other things, but I have to go pick my children up from school.
Very well.
So we'll come back and discuss this more. I hope you guys enjoyed our very first video. We will be more regularly on this, and we'll start explaining more about our backgrounds and how we decided to do the Catholic Every Woman and what our heart is. So come along for the journey because there's so many good things coming. I'm really excited about it.
Me too. Yeah. And I look forward to your comments and other facets of performative Catholicism that you've noticed.
Yeah, that's true. Tell us in the comments what you feel, what has been performative for you, or what you are triggered by and feel other people are doing performatively.
Yeah.